All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a real economic detective story, cracking a case that had economists scratching their heads for decades.
So think about this for a second. How do you build a real science on something you can't even see? This was the central mystery for consumer theory. How on earth can you make a scientific model about what people want when you can't actually measure their feelings? You can't stick a thermometer in and get a reading for satisfaction, right?
And, for the longest time, that's pretty much what early economics was. It was stuck trying to be a mind reader. Economists had to rely on this really fuzzy, unobservable idea they called utility to explain why we buy, say, an apple instead of an orange. It was, well, let's just say it wasn't the most solid scientific ground to stand on.
But then, right around the 1930s and 40s, this economist, Paul Samuelson, he comes along with this absolutely breakthrough idea that just changes everything. Samuelson's whole point was, look, let's stop guessing. Let's just look at the hard evidence. As he famously put it, the individual guinea pig, by his market behavior, reveals his preference pattern. It's like he was saying, hey, let's trade in our crystal balls for detective badges.
And just like that, the theory of revealed preference was born. The core idea is just so elegant, so simple, really. What you do, your choices, they reveal what you actually want. The clues aren't locked away inside your head. They're hiding in plain sight, right there in your shopping cart.
All right, so how does this detective work, in practice? Well, like any good investigation, it all kicks off with a single clue, just one choice that we observe.
Okay, so take a look at our first piece of evidence here. This graph, it shows all the different things someone can buy with their money. That's what that straight budget line is. Now, they picked the specific bundle at point A. And here's the big clue. They could have bought anything else on or inside that line. It was all affordable.
But they didn't, right? And that's the key takeaway. By picking A, they've just told us, without saying a word, that they think all those other options are worse. We've literally just mapped out a whole zone of, nope, don't want that, for this person, all from one simple observation. Okay, great. So we know what's worse, but the real mystery, the thing we're really after, is figuring out what this person would consider just as good as A. That invisible line where they'd say, either one is fine. To get there, Samuelson used this really clever mathematical trick.
So here's how this clever technique works. Think of it like you're playing that game, getting warmer, getting colder. You see one choice, and that tells you a whole area is colder, or, less preferred. Then you see another choice, a little different, and you map out another colder area. You keep doing this, and by connecting the dots at the very edge of all these colder zones, you start sketching out a line, and that line gets closer and closer to that sweet spot, the boundary of what they find equally good.
Okay, but hold on. We've only been mapping out the worst zone, right? Any good detective knows you can't just look at a case from one side. You've got to approach it from all angles. So what about the choices that are warmer, the ones that are actually better? And this is where Samuelson's genius really shines. He realized you could just flip the whole logic around. Instead of just mapping what's worse, you can also map out what's better. By watching what people choose at different prices and incomes, you can start to pinpoint bundles of goods they must prefer. Because, hey, they chose them even when other stuff they used to like was still available. This lets us start drawing another boundary, but this time from the other direction, from above. And this slide, it just lays out the strategy perfectly. We've got two methods going at once. One is mapping that worse than zone from below. The other is mapping the better than zone from above. It is literally like a pincer movement, slowly closing in, trapping that invisible true preference line between two boundaries that we can actually see and measure.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together. This is the big reveal. As our detective keeps gathering more and more evidence, more choices, more observations, those two lines, the better than and the worse than boundaries, they start creeping closer and closer to each other.
And boom, here it is, the payoff. The more data points we get, the more those two zones, the better than and worse than, they get squeezed together until finally they meet. And right there, that's the solution to our whole mystery.
And there you have it. That smooth line you see, that's what economists call the indifference curve. It represents every single combination of goods that our consumer finds equally desirable. I mean, this is the holy grail. We've just drawn a map of someone's personal preferences, and we did it all based on their actions, with absolutely zero guesswork about what's going on inside their head. Case closed.
So what? Why does any of this matter? What's the real legacy of Samuelson's brilliant detective work? Well, it kind of boils down to that old saying, Actions speak louder than words.
I mean, his breakthrough was a total game changer. It took consumer theory and put it on a solid scientific foundation for the first time. Why? Because it was all based on objective, observable data, what people actually do, not some fuzzy, subjective feeling. He created a method that was, as he called it, operationally meaningful. And in the end, it proved, in real economic terms, that what we do speaks way, way louder than what we say we feel.
And that right there is the powerful, lasting idea of revealed preference. You know, your shopping cart, the lunch you grabbed earlier, the show you decided to watch last night. None of those are just random choices. They're all clues. They're all revealing little pieces of the puzzle that is you. So here's a thought. What have your choices revealed about you today?